So today we're going to be answering the question, will Russia's invasion of Ukraine cause World War III? Now Russia started its invasion of Ukraine around 2 weeks ago and it's been an ongoing conflict. NATO is supplying Ukraine and also sanctioning Russia. So we're going to be taking a look of how this could evolve into World War III or if that's even possible. And yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That really helps me out and shows me that you guys are enjoying these videos. And let's go ahead and get started. So here I have the current map of Ukraine and its current state of the war. So pink obviously is Russian forces. We have Kiev about right here and they're pushing down. And they're pretty close to capturing the city, although it has been holding out for the past week, so it's doing pretty well. But the real question is, will this cause World War III? Now, to answer the question right off the bat, no, it will not cause World War III. And that's because if World War III was going to start, then it most likely would have already started. Ukraine is a partner to NATO. It is not a NATO member. It's also not a member of the EU, although it has recently applied for membership. But without any of those, we're not going to see any other countries get involved in this conflict. It will just be Russia and Belarus slapping Ukraine. And yeah, that's the unfortunate truth. But if, let's just say, Russia didn't have nuclear bombs, or if no one had nuclear bombs for that matter, we would maybe see some intervention from Western countries. But the threat of nuclear war is real, and no one wants to have that, so no one is choosing to get involved. So maybe if it was more like World War II style warfare, we would see some interventions, but as of now, this is the most we're ever going to get. But saying that World War III won't start from this isn't like saying that it's impossible, because it is definitely possible. And I'm going to be showing you guys how. So I have covered how this could play out before, but I thought I would just make it its own video because the video that I covered was a different title, different topic. But let's just go ahead and kind of speed up the invasion of Ukraine. We have a spearhead that has been poking out from here, and it will most likely meet up with the other one, which will wipe out northern Ukraine. I'm assuming Russian forces will push over towards Moldova and cut off Odessa, which would lead to the fall of that region. We would then see Russian forces push in from the east. We might see the capturing of Kyiv, which would push down and eventually cut Ukraine into two like this. This region would quickly fall, and Ukraine would be fought back. Eventually, we would also have Belarus joining the war, and we could see a Ukraine that looks like this. Now, this is how World War III can start. Assuming that Ukraine doesn't surrender and Russia keeps advancing, we're going to have a skirmish on the Polish border. Now, around 1 million at this point refugees have fled into Poland, so obviously there's a large sum of people crossing over, and it's not too unlikely that we would see some troops cross over. So in an event, we have Ukrainian forces just kind of crossing the border into Poland in order to flee. In turn, we have Russian forces following those forces out of Ukraine, and this is just them chasing them down, not knowing that they entered into Poland. We eventually see Polish forces meet up with those Ukrainian forces, and then they see the Russians coming toward them. Fire exchange happens, and technically an attack on one is an attack on all. So just like that, we have all of NATO against Russia, and this would maybe diplomatically be sorted out. We might not see all the countries like participate, although they'd be forced to, but we might see some countries just offer diplomacy and end this, because obviously this was an accident. They didn't mean for this to happen. But seeing as NATO leaders have said that even if 1 inch of NATO is invaded, then that means war. So maybe they wouldn't back out, or maybe they would just keep fighting Russia. I'm not sure. That's up to them. I can't tell the future, or even if that is a part of the future, which you never know. But let's go ahead and say, for the sake of this scenario, that NATO does not offer diplomacy and they keep fighting Russia. Now, I've been covering this a lot recently, and this is a pretty similar scenario that we've seen play out. So I do apologize for being sort of repetitive on this, but the topic is hot, and I want to get around to covering most of it. Yeah, we have a pretty large war here. This is probably the largest war Europe has ever had, ever. Well, it probably is, other than like World War II. Also, I did just color in Sweden and Finland on accident. They're not part of NATO, but just later on, they would probably join this war anyway. And Sweden and NATO have both been pushed closer to NATO. And I think over 50% of the population of both countries has stated they want to join NATO. So this isn't too unlikely to see both these countries in NATO. We could also see Moldova join in on this war. Now, this would only happen if Moldova was attacked. Which there are supposedly leaked plans of Russia wanting to invade Moldova. So maybe eventually Russia would move its forces down to take Moldova. I'm not sure. The same could be said with Georgia. I don't think they would just join in, or officially join in, even though Russia already has 2 occupied areas. So yeah, we could see a Europe looking like this. And as far as Russia's allies go, obviously Belarus, but I don't really know how many other they would get. And this is because the aggressor never really wins a war. So, Russia invaded Poland, and that's how the world's going to take it. So we might not see countries like China join in on their side. We might not see countries like, I don't know, Russian allies like Serbia. We might not see them join in on Russia's side. simply because they're the aggressor. But what I do know is that Iran would join in on their side, as well as Syria and Iraq. As well, we would see Venezuela and Cuba, and this is very much playing out like one of my other videos. So I do apologize, but it is going to be a little bit different. So yeah, just like this, we have all of these countries getting involved, and obviously the US and its allies would get some allies. So considering that the Middle East is always a hot mess in my videos, Saudi Arabia, as well as the UAE. So maybe something like this, although I'm starting to kind of, maybe not Israel, because they have relations with Russia as well. But as far as this war goes, at first it would mostly be a NATO pushback, and this is because Russia doesn't have all of its forces mobilized. And that's not to say that NATO also has all their forces mobilized, but NATO's on the defensive here. We all know that there are troops stationed in all these countries. So these troops could, well, even though they're defensive, they could technically push out and push back Russian forces. Also, like, Russian forces are probably scattered across Russia. Maybe not like in the central area, but definitely over here as well. So it would take some time for them to get over here, while as like all the troops in Romania are all within this white spot, and then they just have to move over to here. And it's a lot of a closer distance than saying from here to here. So I hope you guys get what I'm saying. So at first, yes, NATO would be able to push back Russian forces and push into Ukraine. And to be honest, they might be able to capture all of Belarus. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But eventually, Russian forces would be fully immobilized and they would start to push back NATO. So all of Ukraine would most likely fall. We would see Belarus being recaptured. Kaliningrad would be recaptured. And then we would see an overall push out from Ukraine and Belarus into Europe. Now, after seeing Russia's, logistics in Ukraine, I don't know if it's too safe to say that Russia would be able to really push past Poland. That was butchered horribly. Push past oh my god. Push past Poland and Romania, because, they're kind of not doing well in Ukraine right now. So that kind of makes me think that they wouldn't be able to really get past these two countries. They might be able to take over the Baltics, and that's probably the most likely countries to be taken over. But other than that, we would have a pretty solidified NATO defense. We might also see Russia push down into Georgia and Turkey. And then, of course, we have the Middle East pushing into Turkey as well. But then there's also Saudi Arabia, who could push up into Iraq. So it's not exactly a great war for Russia here. They're going to be able to do well, but they're not going to be able to do as well as they want, and it's probably impossible for the red team to win against the blue team here. But luckily for Russia, though, we would have the USA, who is distracted over here in the Americas. But eventually we would see Cuba fall, and eventually we would see Venezuela fall. And with that, we would have these two countries knocked out pretty quickly. Both of these countries have, a very, a very democracy supportive civilian population. In Cuba, obviously, there's protests for freedom. We saw that on mainstream media a couple months ago. It's not really covered anymore, because obviously there's more important things happening. But also in Venezuela, a very politically divided country when it comes to opposition politics. So we probably could see that kind of party rise up and overthrow the current ruling party. So these two countries aren't really much of a threat, and they're probably easy to topple over. But what we do have to worry about is the countries in Europe, obviously Russia and Belarus, and then Iran. Syria, I'm not really sure how much Syria would actually help, seeing as they're in a civil war. And I feel like maybe they wouldn't even join just because of that civil war. Anyway, back over in Europe, we do have Russian forces meeting up with Finland and actually crossing into the Finnish country. Luckily, though, it is wintertime in Finland, and Finland pushes Russia out of the country. We didn't see a push towards St. Petersburg, and we're having a repeat of the Winter War. So when it comes to, combating Russia here, I feel like the USA would send some of its forces over to Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And then we would have Europe mainly focusing on Russia, obviously, although I wouldn't be saying that all U.S. troops go to the Middle East. I think it would maybe be a 60-40 split, 60% going to Europe, 40% to the Middle East. So with that, we have U.S. forces invading Iraq for the third time and re-invading Syria. With the help of the USA, we have Turkey pushing out the Middle East from their country and holding a defensive at the border of Georgia. Saudi, Turkish, and American forces blitz through Syria and Iraq and eventually set up an invasion plan for Iran. Up north in Europe, we do see Russian forces continue to push down. They get towards the capital of Romania, as well as push out from Kaliningrad, which is now threatening Warsaw. A small invasion is made into Slovakia and Hungary, and a counter invasion up north is made against Finland. Now, when it comes to other Russian allies, we have India, who would definitely play neutral. China, also neutral, since Russia is technically the aggressor. And seeing how, as they're not doing anything against the whole Ukraine problem, I don't really think that they would join in with Russia. Now, in order for this to be a World War III, obviously we need maybe one country from every continent. And we basically got that. So North America, South America, Asia, Europe. And then maybe you could see Africa with maybe Yemen joining in. That would technically be Africa because of this island right here. Or then in Oceania, we could probably see the Commonwealth getting involved, so Australia and New Zealand. At this point, is it a world war? No. This is just Russia and allies versus the West. So maybe if China joined in, then yeah. So if China joined in, then that would be a big domino effect, which would make it into a world war. Once again, answering the question, would Russia's invasion of Ukraine cause World War III? No. And then that's just a flat out answer. If NATO got involved, no. If China got involved, yes. So there's a 3-step process there. So going back over to the war in Europe, we finally have NATO forces pushing back Russian forces. Romania is recaptured, as well as Poland. An advance into Kaliningrad is started. And back down in Iran, we have forces pushing across northern Iran in hopes of taking Tehran. With Baltic naval supremacy, we have NATO making landings in Estonia and Latvia. This eventually leads to the liberation of the 3 countries, and another advance into Russia. Now we all know how this plays out from here. If you've ever seen one of my videos before, then you know how this plays out. And if you haven't seen one of my videos before, then let me put it in simple terms. Russia gets clapped here. So yeah, here we go. This is what would happen if you would consider this World War III. This is what it would most likely look like in real life. So if you think World War III can evolve from the Ukrainian conflict, this is what you could look. Or I guess this is what you can look forward to. If you're, or I guess this is what you can expect, not look forward to. Hopefully, no one's looking forward to this. But this is also accounting for nuclear bombs not being used at all. So assuming that Russia doesn't go haywire and launch other nukes, this is what we will see. And a lot of the red team's downfalls come with civilian uprisings. So like I said, in Cuba and Venezuela. But we could also see this in Russia and maybe even Belarus. So maybe we would see some kind of civilian uprising in Russia, overthrowing the government and pulling out of the war. That's completely possible. But yeah, for now, this has been my World War III video. This is a pretty short video. And I've only been recording for 19 minutes. This is a new record, but I have been talking for a majority of those 19 minutes. Looking at a peace treaty here, there really wouldn't be one. It's going to be the exact same as my other videos. So yeah, moving on from here, I'm going to be straying away. Well, I've already said this, but I will be trying to refrain from doing content covering Ukraine because that does get repetitive and I don't want to bore the heck out of you all. So yeah, straying away from that. But I am coming onto a hardship, which is trying to figure out what else I could do with mapping. To be more specific, what to do with global mapping. Because the videos that tend to focus on one area don't do as well as the videos that focus on the entire world. So I want to do more like mapping videos that involve the whole world. But the thing is, I've done pretty much every mapping video that involves the whole world. So if you guys have any like really good global suggestions, then let me know in the comments. I will be reading the comments of this video. And I do mostly read the comments of the other videos. I just don't really like to reply or say anything because I don't know. But yeah, any good global suggestions, let me know in the comments. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it. That shows me that you guys like the video. And subscribe to the channel. That shows me you're enjoying the channel's content. Subscribing is an important factor right now because I said so. And yeah, so if you want to subscribe, then go ahead. I very much recommend it. Once again, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.